The only day that can compare to how stressful that was for my dad was the day that I was born. So the last day that he had been that stressed out was the day that I was born, like 24 years ago. I haven't really told that many people that I was in a wreck last year, but now I'm ready to talk about it. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah. If you are new here, I upload videos every Monday and Friday. As you can tell by the title of this video, this is going to be another story time video, but a little different tone than my last one. If you didn't see my last one, I will link it for you guys. I discussed my mom being diagnosed with cancer again. That was obviously a more serious video, but I mean, it was still very real, and I really wanted to share that with you guys for sure. So once again, if you missed it, I will link it for you guys. But in this video, I'm going to be telling you guys about the worst birthday weekend of my life. So just a little bit of a backstory if you're not familiar with my videos. Once again, my name is Hannah. I live in Florida, just for context. So as I mentioned, it was a birthday weekend, so I'm going to start with the Friday. I was actually able to be a bridesmaid in one of my closest friends' wedding. I love her so much. I've been there for her and her husband's relationship like the entire time, like whenever they started dating and all other stuff. I fully support it. I'm here for it. Her wedding was in Tennessee and it was absolutely beautiful, like probably the funnest wedding that I've ever been to, and I'm not sure if funnest, I don't think that's really a word, but I can't really think of a better way to describe it, so we're just gonna say funnest. It was so beautiful. It was outside, so the only negative thing I have to say about it, it was incredibly hot that weekend, but no regrets. It was so beautiful. We had so much fun. I liked her entire bridal party, the bridesmaids and the groomsmen. It was so much fun that weekend, specifically Friday, because as I mentioned, she got married on a Friday. So she got married in I would say probably early evening. So, you know, it was an evening wedding. Weddings are long, and especially the reception afterwards, and me being a bridesmaid, obviously I'm gonna be there for the entire reception, you know, that kind of thing. So the bridal party didn't end up leaving until I think around like 10:30 p.m. Just for context, this day was obviously not a bad day. It was just a really long day. So it kind of started the weekend. Just for like full context, you know, you'll see as I get further into the video. As I mentioned, this was a birthday weekend. So the next day on Saturday was actually my 24th birthday, you know, birthday last year. I'm not sure exactly when this is going to be going up, but my birthday is in July and I turned 25 in July. So, you know, last year, obviously I was turning 24, and one of the bridesmaids and myself were planning on kind of celebrating that day because we were already, you know, in the same area and that kind of thing. We were just gonna have a fun time. We were contemplating going to Ruby Falls, but that didn't work out, so we ended up going to Nashville. I think it was only about like an hour, maybe hour and 15-minute drive away from where we were. We were still in Tennessee. But before that, the guy that I had been talking to for a couple months, I don't really want to say that we broke up that day because we were never in a relationship officially. Like, we had been talking for a couple months and we both liked each other, but we weren't in a relationship. So yeah, we stopped talking on my birthday. I'm not going to go into the details about that, but if you know me personally, you probably know a lot more about that. Basically, it comes down to the fact that we are very different people, and that whole relationship was kind of a learning experience for me. It just really bothers me because that happened on my birthday. Like, that's just really crappy, and I still look back and like I don't know, I'd probably remember the day just because I remember days, but I specifically remember the day because it was my birthday, and I'm really hoping my 25th birthday is a lot better this year. So after that, I talked about a couple other bridesmaids that stayed in that house and that kind of thing. So we kind of discussed it a little bit, but I didn't really want to let it dampen my day too much. But I think we did talk about it a little bit at breakfast, because we ended up going to a really cute coffee shop for breakfast, and then one of the other bridesmaids, I think she went home after that. But one of the other ones, and I know I'm like, just whatever. Anyway, try to follow me, please. I'm sorry, I'm doing the best I can. So me and this other girl who was a bridesmaid, we've been friends, you know, really like her, obviously, because we were gonna hang out. So we both drove to Nashville after that, and we kind of had a fun time. We honestly did like pretty touristy things. I remember we went to the Frothy Monkey, which is a coffee shop, and then we also went to Five Daughters Bakery. That is seriously the best donut that I've ever had. So if you're in the Nashville area or you were planning to go there, recommend Five Daughters Bakery. It's delicious. So we did like pretty touristy things. It was still really hot, but it was a lot of fun. We also walked on 12th, I think 12 South, is that what it's called? Like the, you know, where the mural is and all the other stuff. We walked on 12 South, did a little bit of shopping and that kind of thing. That was a lot of fun. She ended up going home after that, but I continued to do a little bit of shopping at Nordstrom Rack because I love me some Nordstrom Rack. So it was a really fun birthday. It may not seem like I did a lot, but I'm a really like quality time person. I'm very introverted. Oh, that's another thing that I want to mention. I'm very, very introverted, as I was saying. So normally if I have, you know, like I do like a really social thing, like for example, that wedding, that really drains me. Like I had a lot of fun because once again, like I knew a lot of people that were there, like I was friends with a lot of them. So it was so much fun, but I was really drained. So the next day I was already tired on my birthday, but you know, it was like my birthday, so I'm gonna try to have fun and that kind of thing. But like after I do kind of like an activity after that, I need to recharge. If you're an introvert, I feel like you can relate, you understand what I'm saying. So we are on day 2 of doing social things, and I know it's just me and the other girl, you know, having a lot of fun, but it's still social. But that was a better environment for me, to be honest, because my ideal like spending time with people is like 1 to 3 people tops. That's just the type of person I am. People are different, you know, just to kind of give you more, you know, of an example, I guess, of what type of person I am, in case you're curious. After shopping at Nordstrom Rack, I drove to my grandma's house. My grandma lives in Kentucky, for context. So my birthday was a lot of fun, but I was really tired because I did driving and that kind of thing. And driving makes me tired. Like I wasn't unsafe, but I was just so tired. Then we get to Sunday. I left my grandma's house that morning to go to Florida. I drink coffee. You know, I've mentioned this before, I love drinking coffee, but obviously it makes me need to use the restroom. I wasn't even out of Kentucky yet. I remember I took an exit and it was raining and I was looking to see which direction McDonald's was because that's where I was going to stop. And whenever I, you know, so like for a second or two or however long, I was still like paying attention to driving, but I was trying to see which direction the McDonald's was. But then whenever I looked in front of me again, there was a car in front of me that was like way closer than what I thought it was. So I slammed on my brakes, but since the road was wet, I did end up hitting her. It wasn't really that much of an impact, but it did leave a dent in her car and my car because the roads was wet and that kind of thing. She ended up being the person to call the police. We both pulled off onto the shoulder. The police was actually really nice, but before, the police officer who came to the accident was really nice, but before that, I called my dad. I was contemplating not calling him there for a second because it was Sunday, but clearly I have never been in a wreck until that circumstance. And yes, I know, like some people, like you might be watching this and think like that's not even really a wreck, or might not think it's that big of a deal, but I'd never been in an accident before. And also I was by myself, that's the other thing. But anyway, there for a second, I contemplated not calling him because he was in church, but like that's ridiculous. So clearly I called him and I started the phone call with, you know, like don't freak out, but I was in an accident or something like that. But regardless, it was really not the best way to tell him, I feel like. But I mean, what is a good way to tell your dad that you were in an accident? But I did, you know, quickly tell him I was okay, the other person was okay, so that was good. So I was on the phone with him for the entire process. He also did remind me the entire process, even whenever I was talking to the police officer, but he did remind me to take pictures, which is good because like I feel like I kind of somewhat knew that, but you know, in the element whenever it actually happened, I did not really think of that. So he told me to take pictures, so I'm glad, you know, just in case we needed that. The woman who I ended up hitting, like she actually ended up being like really easy to work with. I mean, it's very unfortunate. Obviously I apologized, but I feel like it could have been so much worse. The police officer was really nice. But another unfortunate thing about that whole circumstance is my insurance, my car insurance was up to date, but I did not have an up-to-date insurance card to like prove to him, I guess, that my insurance is up to date. So I think I did have to, did get a fine for that, for like not having an up-to-date insurance card, which since then I, you know, make sure that my insurance card is up to date. But thankfully I did have like my registration with me, you know, that kind of thing. So I called him and the whole circumstance really didn't take that long. He looked at my car and he said to him it looked like it was drivable. So after, you know, we exchanged information and he, I guess, reported the accident, you know, he did his thing, that kind of thing. I did pull over to like a restaurant or whatever to assess my car to see if I could continue to drive the rest of the way home, which I could. The only thing is my door would creak whenever I was opening it because I hit the bumper, but also the side pan. I'm not a car person, so, but regardless, my door would creak whenever I opened it, and also, you know, a dent in my bumper, but it was still drivable. So I called my dad, told him that I could still drive home. Unfortunately, a lot of the drive home was pretty rainy, except for, I don't think through Nashville, because oh man, I was praying so much. I was praying a lot that day. I think it did not rain during Nashville. It's been about a year, so I can't 100% remember. But driving through Nashville stresses me out because you have to like switch lanes and I think switch highways a couple times. It's just not ideal. Like, I like the actual city, like I like visiting it, but it's not ideal whenever you have to drive through it on the highway. My personal thought about that. But it did rain quite a bit, and sometimes it would rain so hard that I could hardly see. Because I think I needed to get my windshield wipers replaced as well. Like, the whole day was just so stressful. And this is like the day after my birthday. It was just not an ideal circumstance. So it's just taking me a really long time to get home, obviously. I remember it was raining really, really hard again. And at this point I was in southern Alabama, and I told him basically I can't do this anymore. Also, by this point, I think he already started driving up with my mom to kind of like meet me where I was, and then we could drive back down, which was great. But I had to wait for him, you know, obviously, because I told him what exit I was at. Like, this, I'm talking through this really fast, but just try to keep in mind, like, this all happened in a span of like 3 days, how long this weekend is, and I'm such an introvert. Like, it's just a lot of unfortunate things that happened. But thankfully my parents could come and save the day. So my dad met me, I think it was at Dairy Queen or maybe a gas station, regardless. So my parents met me at that gas station, and I think up until that point, that was the last, let me try, how am I supposed to say it? How am I gonna say this? The only day that can compare to how stressful that was for my dad was the day that I was born. So the last day that he had been that stressed out was the day that I was born, like 24 years ago. It was a stressful time for us all. So my dad drove my car down, and then I rode with my mom like the rest of the way home. So my dad drove my car the rest of the way home, and then I rode with my mom the rest of the way home. And I can't remember exactly whenever we got home, but it was like pretty late at night. But we were finally home, and that day was basically finally over. That was probably the longest day of my life, honestly. And the reason I didn't really want to talk about it is basically because it was so stressful. If you know me personally and you didn't know that that happened to me, the reason why is because I kind of just did not want to talk about it. So that's the end of the really long weekend. After that, my car was still drivable, but it is still like fairly new to me, and it is a nice car. Like, I think it's nice, you know. I did get it used, but we're getting off on a tangent. I did want to get it fixed because I'm planning on driving it for several more years, and I didn't want the door to creak every single time I opened, you know, the driver's door. And also the front bumper, like, it just did not look good. So, like, to be honest, like, there was a creaking, and then it was mostly like, the reason I wanted to get it fixed was for cosmetic reasons. So we went through my insurance. My insurance obviously covered her. And I'm pretty sure what I remember, you know, once again, this did happen a year ago. My dad also helps me through this process. Thank you, Dad. Because obviously I've never been through this before. So I ended up taking it to get it fixed, and since it was my fault, I did not get a rental car, which was unfortunate. I was able to borrow my mom's car a couple times, but after, like, you own your own car, like, it just is not the same, like, whenever you get that taken away from you. So I think I didn't have my car for over a week, maybe like 10 days, and it was just not ideal, to be honest, because I felt very stuck at home. Also, for context, these are just things that I'm remembering. I didn't even write this down in my notes. This is after I quit my job, so I'm also do not have a source of income at this point. So thankfully, you know, I did have a significant amount of money saved up, but obviously I'm going to be needed to be the person to pay for the repairs on my car. I wasn't really gonna say, I don't know, I'm contemplating whether to say or not how much I paid for the deductible, but I guess, you know, I guess we're gonna go ahead and say it. So the deductible that I had to pay was $1,000, and you might think, you know, that I could have done it cheaper, like I could have found somebody to do it for me or something like that, but not really, because it was more than just the bumper. I think like the alignment was off as well, and I think like I had to get a side panel repaired as well. So it was, you know, a fairly Like it didn't look to be too in depth, but it was a little bit more in depth than what we initially thought. So I had to end up paying my deductible of $1,000, and then the insurance covered the rest. But paying that just was not ideal. This was like right after I quit my job. Like I think I had only been out of work for not that long. It just, the whole time was very stressful, definitely a learning experience. So I think that pretty much wraps up my whole story time from the worst birthday weekend of my life. If you liked this video, if you found it enjoyable, personally, I love story time, so if you want to give it a thumbs up, I'd really appreciate it. Once again, I upload videos every Monday and Friday. Feel free to stick around and subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you in my next video.